All right. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, we are live this time. So sorry for the delays. The technology just likes to torture me. It just wants to torture me. So I'm just going to wait just for a couple of seconds here to make sure the live stream is up and running. I may have to link. Oh, I, I think this is showing on the book fair page. On the event page and not our main page, which is nice. Um, yeah, okay. Let me just, yeah, okay, woohoo. I actually got this to work, guys. I deserve like a medal. I just want you to know that. You have no idea the heroic efforts that it took to get this technology to work. It's not supposed to be this hard. All right, so if you are seeing this, please post a comment under the video feed. Say, yes, I'm here and I see it. Do we have bodies? Do we have live people? Or did you give up all hope and leave us thinking that this was just never going to happen? How about now? Uh, hopefully. Please tell me you're seeing this. Tell me there are bodies out there. All right, well, Sam says she can see it and I can see it. So I think we're live. So I'm going to pretend that we're live. If we're not live, then we're talking to ourselves, but at least we'll have a recording of a lovely video to share with you all later. All right. Well, let me start my little timer here. Don't cut over time. All right. Well, hello and welcome everybody. I'm super excited to be here. I am Terry Bruce for Strong Women Strange Worlds. I am one of the co-founders of Strong Women Strange Worlds, and I attend every one of our events, but usually don't see me because I am generally behind the camera and behind the scenes doing all the technical stuff, which makes it even more hilarious that I could not get this live stream to work because I am the technical guru of the group. So you know, that's fine. So today we've got several of our authors who will be here. We're doing an online book fair. We're hoping this will be a very fun, high energy event. This is sort of a beta test to work out the kinks. So we are very interested in your feedback as well. So after the event, if you let us know how it went, what you thought, suggestions for improvements, the parts that you really liked, we would love to hear that. We're really hoping this will become a regular event, perhaps monthly, with different authors appearing. And we're also interested in sort of how long is 1 hour good or a whole day event? Let us know. All right, so the way this is going to work today is we do have 4 authors. I'm one of them, but I'll be going last. I'll pass the baton to each author. They'll introduce themselves. They'll tell you a little bit about kind of who they are and what the vibe of what they write is and what genres they write in. They're going to share a little bit about their work. They're going to share some interesting factoids, hopefully, and about kind of the genesis of some of these books and stories, where they get their ideas, that kind of information. And they're going to have some special offers for you today, because it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to come on here and just talk about stuff and for you to hang out here that you can just buy on Amazon or at your local bookstore. So there are going to be some special things that you can only get from us authors by seeing us here today. Now, in general, the way the sales portion will work for those special offers is if the author is offering something you're interested in purchasing or receiving, if they're doing a free giveaway or whatever, under the video in the comments section on Facebook, you should comment to indicate that you're interested. And please say what you're interested in, because the comments do not always match up to the timestamp of the video. So you might be commenting when Josie is speaking, but you really wanted something that Sam was offering. So please indicate the item. You can say I want or sold or give me, and the name of the item, the author. And then after this event, the authors will reach out to you via Facebook Messenger or private message and connect with you to get your billing information, your email address. Most of the billing or payments will be done through PayPal or Venmo or possibly Square or some other electronic money transfer system, but the authors each are handling that themselves directly. So they'll reach out to get your email address, and then they'll connect with you to get your mailing address if they're mailing you something, and to arrange payment. So that's how that's going to work today. So our first author that will be up is going to be Sam Liddell, and I'm going to turn it over to Sam now.
Thank you, Terry. Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Liddell. It's so great to be here. Thank you to Terry and Strong Women, Strange Worlds for hosting this. All right, so I'm going to start off with a little bit about myself. I am currently in the Denver area. I like to joke that you can kind of track where I've been across the United States based off of the back of my books. There is usually a different city listed on the back jacket for all of my books. But I'm currently in Denver and loving it, hoping to be here for a while. So I work in the special education field by day, and I've been doing that for about 12 years. I absolutely love it. But when I'm not doing my day job, I am writing or trying to write or thinking about writing. So I have books published with Bold Strokes Books. Sure, I'm pointing the right way. There we go. They are the largest LGBTQ plus publisher, and they are fantastic. I'm fortunate to be an author with them. I have 6 books published with them. I've written sort of a variety of things. I have a young adult, contemporary, coming of age story, fantasy books, and historical fiction. But today I'm here to talk about my fantasy books, the Odium trilogy. I absolutely adore writing and reading fantasy. That's kind of where my heart lies. And so I'm excited to kind of talk about those books today. The first book in the series is Daughter of No One. That is followed by Broken Rain. And then the final installment is The Princess and the Odium. These are obviously my author copies, as they have my notes throughout. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the premise of the trilogy today, and some tidbits and fun facts. So I'll start with kind of the general premise of the trilogy. The story follows 2 young women, Princess Aurelia Diremaid. She is the youngest daughter of the Diremaid family, who rules over the kingdom of Venastes. She's very sheltered, a bit naive, and she's beginning to grow restless as she sees her older brother gain more freedom as he prepares for his role as king. And so she's desperately seeking to try to prove herself in some way to her family that she is capable of ruling one day, even if it's alongside her brother. The kingdom of Venastes is a very prosperous kingdom, but it is governed by very strict laws. The first of which is that there is no mingling between humans and fae. The second is that women are not allowed to bear children out of wedlock. And the third law is sort of a subset of the second, that the child that is born is dubbed an odium child. They are believed to be the bearer of any kingdom's end. So if a woman does have a child out of wedlock, she is essentially shunned, kicked out of the kingdom, and forced to try to survive if she's able to. That leads me to the other main character, Jastin Cypher, who is the eponymous daughter of no one. She is an odium child, and she is a very angry individual due to her lot in life. She feels she has been dealt the worst hand possible. She absolutely despises the royal family for their, in her mind, outdated and unjust laws. And she essentially hates everybody and everything except for her family and her best friend, Egypt the Hedge Witch. So she and her mother were forced to try to survive on their own for the first half of her life. Her mother did eventually remarry. So she has a stepfather and a half-sister, Alana. On top of just struggling to survive, Jastin is also haunted by a dark fae who is trying to get his hands on her because it's believed the odium child, along with the dark fae, can bring about the destruction of a kingdom. So the dark fae is working with some other not so friendly characters within the castle who are actually looking to usurp the Diremaid family. So there's a lot of things happening kind of under the surface of this story, along with the two young women trying to kind of figure out their lives and where they are, and succeed in their roles with the sort of cards that they have been dealt. And they end up meeting one day because Jastin's half-sister Alana is very sick, and the queen happens to be a wondrous healer. Of course, going to the queen is the last thing Jastin wants to do, as she would not even look twice at the royal family if they were in trouble. But she's desperate, and she decides to go ask the queen for help, but she doesn't meet the queen, she meets the princess instead, who of course sees this as a chance to try to prove herself and show that she can take up a cause and be of help, so that she can prove to her family that she is worthy. She also decides to kind of keep this as a secret mission, as odium children are not supposed to exist. So Aurelia is kind of very eager and excited to help Jastin. Of course, Jastin doesn't really care for the princess at all and doesn't believe she can be of help. So that's kind of the setup for this. The kingdom does fall under attack. The princess is kidnapped, and Jastin, in her desperate state, decides to go on a mission to find the princess, deciding that if she can use her as leverage, the royal family will have to help her and have to help her sister. Of course, this plan does not necessarily come to fruition. There are a lot of other factors at play in the story, and the two women, Aurelia and Jastin, end up having to go on this sort of epic journey to find the cure for Jastin's sister, and also to essentially save the kingdom and save their families from the evil forces that are at play over the course of the books. So it's an epic journey. There's lots of adventure, lots of little skirmishes and battles, and essentially is a story about family acceptance, and there is a blossoming romance between the two young characters. So that is kind of the general premise of the Odium trilogy. I'll talk a little bit about kind of the world itself, because one of the fun things about writing fantasy is the world building and what you get to incorporate in those stories. So I pulled a lot from Irish mythology for this trilogy. There's a lot of elemental magic that is at play. All of the characters have what's called a sail, or a companion flame. I have a couple examples of those here. So you imagine it's sort of floating above my hand. Every person can conjure their companion flame at will. It's color coordinated to the person's personality, and also is tied to their sort of their state. So if they're feeling very low, if they're weak, the flame is going to be very small. If they are feeling confident and strong, the flame will be much bigger. It's primarily used as a light source, as the story takes place in the Iron Age. So if somebody's going out to wander in the woods, this will kind of bob along as they walk through. This is Aurelia's companion flame, and this is Jastin's. But the companion flames can also be manipulated to be used in attack and defense magic. It can be morphed to form a shield, and can be thrown for lots of really pop of fun colors during battle scenes, which was fun to write. There's also a lot of mythological creatures involved in this trilogy. I did incorporate elves in this fantasy trilogy. For me, one of the fun things about writing fantasy is taking kind of familiar tropes or familiar characters that you might see a lot, and trying to walk that fine line between writing, something that's familiar, but also putting my own twist on it. So I had fun attempting to do that with the elves in this story. There's also Selkies that feature prominently in books 2 and 3. I hadn't read a lot of books that featured Selkies, so I got to do some fun research. I'm one of those writers who really enjoys the research process on Selkies, and got to kind of bring them to life in these books. There's sirens, there's There's nymphs, there are pukas, there's all sorts of fun individuals and creatures that the characters encounter over the course of the trilogy. And the world building, like I mentioned, is one of the fun things for me in writing fantasy. So I had to kind of lay out what this world was going to look like for the characters. And that was a lot of fun. It was also really challenging. I have a very rudimentary example of the original map that I tried to sketch out when I was creating the world. The Kingdom of Venastes has 2 sister kingdoms. And so I had a lot of fun and a lot of trouble, honestly, trying to come up with an accurate geography for this world. Making sure rivers were where they were, mountains made sense, and things like that. So fortunately, I have a wonderful cover artist, and she was able to take my very rough and rudimentary sketch that I passed on to her and said, please help. And she was able to turn it into this wonderful finished product that you'll find at the front of each of the books. So we have the Kingdom of Venastes, the sister kingdom over here, Elf territory, and the Kingdom of Uterni over here. So I absolutely love this map. I think she did a fantastic job. But I love it because you get to kind of track the characters' journeys over the course of the books and see where they are as they work their way across the realm and back over the course of the 3 books. So that was really fun. So that is kind of a general premise of the books. I'll talk for a minute very quickly about my process. I handwrite all of my manuscripts. I have lots of journals filled with my chicken scratch. This is the one that contains Daughter of No One, my handwritten notes. And for me, I just find that works better when I'm writing the story. The words tend to flow better when it's coming from my brain out through the pen onto the paper. So everything is handwritten. I have lots of journals. I go through very many pens and lots of ink in the process before I turn it into a manuscript that's typed up that my editor won't pull her hair out at the sight of. And I weirdly don't have a pen collection. I'm trying to start one. And I don't tend to have a favorite type of pen to write with, but anything really that I can pick up and put ideas down on paper, I will use. I'm also somewhere in between a plotter versus the pantser, if you're familiar with that term. Plotters tend to kind of plan things out in detail. Pantsers fly by the seat of their pants. I'm generally somewhere in between. With this trilogy, I had to be more of a planner. After pitching the first book idea to my publisher, they were like, great, what happens in the next 2 books? I quickly realized I didn't have a lot of details for that. So I knew where the characters were going to start and end, but I didn't know how they would get from point A to point Z. So that actually kind of was really beneficial because I had to become a bit more of a planner so I could make sure everything was set up for the characters and for the story to be as cohesive as possible for all of the many plot points that go through 3 books. Yeah, so that is my fantasy trilogy, and kind of a bit about my process and the way that I'm writing. So for today, for those of you listening, I am giving away 1 free ebook of Daughter of No One. If you are interested in that, you can post ebook Daughter of No One on the Facebook page or under the stream, and the first person to do that will get that free ebook. I am also giving away the trilogy in paperback form, so all 3 books, along with a little bit of Odium Trilogy swag. I will send to if you're interested in that, you can post Odium Trilogy, and then I will be able to find the names on there and can send you that one if you are interested. If there's multiple people interested, I'll do a drawing, and then the winner, I will send those to. And then in addition to that, the first 3 people who are interested in Daughter of No One and go online to purchase it, if you send me proof of purchase, I will send you the subsequent 2 books, Broken Rain and Princess and the Odium, in paperback form, so that you can have the entire trilogy to hopefully read and enjoy that story. So that is what I have for today. Thank you all so much for listening and for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the other authors presenting today.
Thank you, Sam. That was awesome. That was great. And if nobody else snatches up those books, I think I'm going to. So you all better comment quick and grab those before I take them. So next up, my little agenda here is a little bit out of order, but next up is going to be Claudia Blood. So Claudia, are you there?
Ooh. I think I'm here and you can hear me, but unfortunately my video is playing tricks on me. I hate it when it plays tricks on me. Give me one moment and I can see if I can make it do what it needs to do. My apologies. If the next person is ready, you're welcome to move on while I'm dealing with my technical difficulties.
Okay, we could do that. Josie, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here. Let me
Okay.
see. I have to get my video started. So.
We're racing to the finish.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, Josie
All right.
wins.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we'll do so Josie's next. Okay, so Josie. So next is Josie Malone. Take it away.
Okay. Hi, I'm Josie Malone, and I write paranormal romance, 2 different series for Melange Satin Romance. I write the Baker City Hearts and Haunts series. That's about ghosts, obviously. And the second series is the Liberty Valley Love series, where I usually say that no matter what, you will find your true love. But it could be a time travel, it could be an Old West, it could be contemporary, it could be just about anything, including shapeshifters. So let me look. I think the 6th book just came out, or is it the 5th book? I get confused. Time in Between just came out. That one was about witches and wizards. And this is book 6 in the series. And it's about a witch, obviously. And then her coven is a little different. The elders in the coven choose the mate. So it's about arranged marriages, which the witches may or may not like. That was a fun one. But it all started with Liberty Valley back when a gunfighter in the Old West was the toughest man around. The hero was pretty smart. He figured out she was a woman. But everybody else kind of figured Trace Burdett was the toughest guy around, and you didn't want to mess with Trace Burdett. So that was the first book in the series. And Trace had stories about things that her grandfather had told her. And from there, it went into more places about Liberty Valley and into the contemporary world, where kids in that second book, Cowboy Spell, cast a love-bringing spell to find the perfect mate for their mother because they did not care for their father. He didn't have time for them before the divorce, and he definitely didn't have time for them after the divorce. And from there, we went on to Marshall's Lady, which was a time travel. And so there's basically 6 books in that series. And I have a lot of fun with that one because anything can happen, and anything does happen. And I really need to clean my office because I'm sitting here looking at this thing going, wow, I didn't think everything would show up, and everything is showing up. Wow, got to clean my office one of these days. In Baker City, which is at the far end of Liberty Valley, it's north of Liberty Valley, the ghosts are real and so is love. And it starts with a medium who moves to a destination ranch and discovers it's haunted. And she's not in touch with her powers. So when she does discover that there is a ghost and that the things that she has been seeing forever do exist, she has to try to figure out how to deal with everything that she does see and does hear. And by the end of the book, she does, but it's a long journey for her. It's about self-discovery and who are you really? And it's also about self-acceptance. So the hero was the man who came home from Vietnam. He died there at Hamburger Hill, and he came home and he never left. And so he's been haunting the family ranch for several years, and about 40 years, I think. And when he gets home, he decides that Kat should leave. And Kat says, no, I just got here. I'm not going anywhere. But the two of them do manage to communicate. That one I had a tough time with because I love the book, but until Melange picked it up, we didn't know if it was going to ever sell. My editor loved it. I loved it. But nobody else seemed to care for the ghosts. And it was kind of a cross between Murphy's Romance and The Ghost of Mrs. Muir, but it had a happy ending. And then my publisher, who was publishing my young adult novels, Fire and Ice publishes my young adult novels. My publisher read it and she loved it. And she said, the only problem I have with this book is I don't think the title sells the book. And I said, well, in that case, we change the title. And she says, you do that? And I said, oh yeah, definitely. So we changed the title from, I called it Ghost Ranch, but we changed the title from Ghost Ranch to My Sweet Haunt. And that works. And the book has been out as an ebook and as a print book for quite some time. I think about 2 years now. And it's followed up with My Sweet Haunt. And see if I can get it up high enough for people to see it. And then it says Cobwebs, Eerie Sounds, and Creaky Floorboards greet Kat O'Leary McTavish and her twin daughters when they moved to their new home, a dilapidated dude ranch near Baker City in the Cascade foothills of Washington State. And former Army Ranger Rob Williams always planned to run the family ranch after completing his military service. Instead, he bought the farm with his life when he died in Vietnam. But being dead doesn't mean he's going anywhere. Encountering someone who sees and hears him is a welcome change, because then he can tell her that, no, he's not going anywhere. He's staying where he is. Well, following Kat and Rob's adventures, and of course they had to deal with the people who wanted to buy the ranch and turn it into a gravel pit, because in Western Washington, the big deal is if you can find gravel anywhere, it's basically the new gold, and they will mine it for the gravel and use it for housing developments. And so if you're sitting on a piece of property that has gravel, people are always trying to buy it from you for next to nothing and then destroy it. So I got to vent a little bit about that one. Kat and Rob managed to save not just, they're going to have to save themselves, they're going to have to save the ranch, and then they're also going to have to save the nearby town of Baker City, which Kat discovers is haunted, and she's the only person who can see the ghosts that continue to haunt Baker City. Well, the second book in the series, More Than a Spirit, follows, but it's about one of Kat's friends. So it's kind of a spin-off, but Kat and Rob still appear in that book. In the third book, Family Skeletons, that was about a woman who does return from Afghanistan, but her best friend died while they were there. And so she's dealing with that, and she's dealing with the fact that she had a one-night stand while the night of the memorial service. She couldn't deal with Raven's death, and she definitely couldn't deal with the memorial service. So she went to a hotel and picked up a guy, and then she meets the guy later, and they get together, and she discovers she's pregnant, and he's getting ready to ship out. And the one thing he wants is he wants her to have his Army benefits. And so it's kind of a paranormal military romance. I feel like I created a new genre there, and I have a great deal of fun with it. We live on a family ranch. I pretty much wind up running it now, which is probably why I haven't cleaned my office. And this is day camp season, so I spend a lot of time in the barns, grooming and saddling and teaching horseback riding to little kids. And while I'm doing that, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what happens next in the next book? Because sometimes my brain just goes off on a tangent and I want to write a book, but I can't write a book because I'm working 12-hour plus days. So then I write at night, or I try to. And for today, the books are all available on Amazon or Barnes and Noble and all the usual outlets. And for today, for people who respond, I'm going to do what I'm following Sam's footsteps and offer an ebook of the 2 books that are books 3 and books 4 in the Liberty Valley series. The Marshal's Lady is a time travel back to 1888. Be careful where you go in Liberty Valley, because if you cross the time portal, you will be in 1888 from the contemporary world. Try to deal with that. The Marshal's Lady was about a homicide detective who was chasing a killer, and she ended up in 1888, but to her surprise, the killer's there too. And she and the Marshal wind up trying to track him down, and of course the Marshal is the love interest. He appeared in the first book and of Liberty Valley, and the heroine in that book just had issues with him because she just felt like he was an idiot. He upheld the law, but he didn't uphold morality according to her. So anyway, in this book, the Marshal finds his match, but she's from the future and they are hunting a killer. So I'm going to give an ebook away of that one. It's called The Marshal's Lady, for whoever grabs it first. And the next book in it is the one about his younger brother. And that's actually book 5 in the series. And it's about him coming to the future to try to protect one of the killer's proposed victims. The heroine's best friend, his new sister-in-law's best friend, who was one of the women that was attacked by the killer in the future, and winds up, that's part of why the heroine goes after him in book 3. It's very convoluted. If you've read the series, you kind of know everything intertwines. Everything matches up, and there, as Diana Gabaldon says, everything will be revealed. Everything winds up being explained, but it takes a while. I'm working on book 7, and some of the stuff that came up in book 6 will be explained in book 7. And I'm kind of a combination of like Sam, I'm a combination of a plotter and a pantser. I'll sit there and think up things that could happen in the books when I'm teaching horseback riding. How many ways can you teach somebody how to clean a hoof? And then after that, then I have to figure out, I have to plot it so I can see that all of the hoops got jumped through and that all of the questions were answered. So that's pretty much my writing style. I write at night after the barns are clean. When you're mucking stalls, you can always think of something new and different besides mucking stalls. And that's pretty much it. And then for the Baker City series, we'll do a ebook of My Sweet Haunt, which introduces you to the series. And for somebody who gives me a comment about wanting the print version, I'll give away 1 copy of the print version of the first book in the Baker City series and the first book in the Liberty Valley series as well. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a warning that in the first book in the Liberty Valley series, Man's World, Trace does not take any prisoners. And if you think of it as kind of a feminine version of a Louis L'Amour novel, you won't be disappointed. But she carries her grandfather's pistols. He was wiped out in an ambush, and he was the man who raised her, and she was a child of rape. And so he raised her as a boy to be able to defend herself, because he did not want the same thing to happen to her that happened to her mother. So that's part of where she is just really, really tough. And the only person who can see through her is the hero. I think that's pretty much what I've got, Terry. I hope that Claudia is ready.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Thank you, Josie. Let me spotlight Claudia. Oh, now her face is nice and big. All right, Claudia, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I am Claudia Blood, and I'm so glad to join you today. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It was all on me. So what I'm going to be talking about today is Company Assassin and the Relic trilogy, and let you know a little bit about me. My books generally start with a dream, or when you wake up and you're laying in bed and you're like, I really don't want to get up, and your brain kind of wanders away. Sometimes I get these ideas of things that can happen. And if they're interesting enough, then I try to figure out what in the world is going on. When I come up with a story, the beginning of it is absolutely pantsing. I have no idea what's happening. I don't have any idea who the characters are. I just get this scene in. So for the Relic trilogy, the scene that came to mind was actually so picture this team of guys going through the jungle, and it wasn't actually guys. I didn't realize that at the time. And they come upon this ancient ruin that's really an alien artifact. And when they go inside, I realized that they were actually meaning to go there. I don't know why at this point, right? Because it's I'm almost watching them go through this. And they get inside and they push away the vines, and there's this table on it and these weird columns and stuff. And the one of them goes over to a machine that's on the side and starts wiggling with it and figures out how to turn it on, which I guess is their goal, right? They're trying to find these things called relics. And they fiddle around with it and they turn it on, and it's very I don't know if you guys saw Terminator, the original Terminator with the blue lightning and that kind of jazz with somebody coming in, but it was very much like that on this platform. And suddenly there was this 80s aerobics instructor. I mean, the leg warmings, the headband, the hair from the 80s. And I stopped the scene and I'm like, what in the world is going on here? How does this go? Because they're not on Earth. I can tell this, like my little mental, what's going on. It's not on Earth. I have no idea how this 80s aerobics instructor and these guys and this alien technology all fit together. Well, so then there's a lot more brainstorming that happens, and a couple of different scenes that come to me. And then I do a little bit of plotting because, as the previous authors have said, trying to make sure that all of the different threads go together and then it makes some sense, and you don't have some crazy things go on that, again, make no sense happen in this. So that scene, not quite like that, but that scene ended up in the second book of the series. And I had to write a previous book to it in order to understand what in the world is going on. So the first book, and that is Company Assassin, and I guess I can hold it up to my chest. Oh, and I forgot to reverse the image. There's some way of doing that, but at this point in time, I'll figure it out later. Company Assassin is about Duff Roman, and he is an orphan who's about to age out of an orphanage, obviously, and he is on a distant jungle planet in the future called Kalika, and it's a very strict, it's an odd planet. There's very much a survival of the fittest kind of thing going on at this point in time, and the orphans are at the bottom of the food chain. They don't get a lot of food, they don't get a lot of attention. There's a lot of social things that happen with them that just isn't cool. And so it's a struggle for them to survive, and their way to survive is either they have to go into this monster infested jungle to find relics, which turns out are pieces of Earth's past that have transported to this planet and are scattered, they think, randomly within the jungle. So if they can get one of these relics, it could be a pocket watch, it could be a coin, it could be a book, I mean, it could be anything that has value to the company that runs the planet, and they're able to take that currency and use it towards their survival. There are families that are on there. So there are actually 12 main families. So I don't think I've ever actually stated that in the book. And the families are very hierarchical with the leaders and different sort of levels within the family. And those are the ones who have the most. Actually, that's not really true. They have the second most. The people who have the most are the company associates. And so those are the people who work for the company that dominate this planet. And they have everything, all the technology, all of the ease, And so that's sort of and then the last group of people that you will probably want to know about are the seers. And those are people who actually were brought forward, just like that 80s aerobics instructor who ended up on this jungle planet, which, I mean, if you think about it, if you're like pulled out of your 80s lifestyle in the middle of an aerobics class and end up, you know, in the middle of the jungle with this team of, you know, people that you've never met, and, you know, it's all jungle and creepy, and you think you're going crazy. And so there's a lot of things around that are people don't want to be there, so they don't really adjust well, and they keep trying to mentally go back and reliving the life that they knew it was. So seers tend to not adjust well, and but the reason that they are higher than orphans is because they've got the sense of the time on the planet, and they can find relics. And so that's kind of the first book is about Duff Roman and his trying to survive and try to take care of the orphans in the orphanage that he has obviously come to love. The other person in the book that you guys might find kind of interesting is Z, and Zachariah has a huge secret. Well, his team, it is kind of a huge secret. The orphans don't have any clue about it, but he actually used to be an orphan, and he is an assassin. And some of his previous assignments, he's got a lot of guilt about what happened, but he's not really evil. He's one of those people that he thinks he's doing the right thing, and he thinks that he's upholding order, and that he's taking on this sort of like moral debt to himself because he's making things better. He's not, and he didn't realize that, and he had a very shocking revelation that made him realize that, and that just completely changed his life. And that's how he ended up starting the Z Crew, which is also very central in this book. So I think I talked a little bit about my process and about, you know, how it's kind of starts with dreams, and then it ends up, you know, lots of brainstorming, and then finally you kind of try and plot it through. I have to tell you that the third book in the series was one of the hardest things that I've ever tried to figure out, because I am not simple. I don't understand why I do this to myself, but there were like all of these threads, and there's time travel, and there's, you know, there's this whole other overarching thing that happened that I was kind of aware of, that I'm actually writing right now with Ravine's previous story, with how she, oh, and I forgot about Ravine. How can I forget about my favorite bad guy or bad gal? Ravine is the head of the company, and she's the one that set this whole entire thing up, and you don't realize it in this book, but she's the reason that everything is the way that it is on this planet. She's the reason why relics even exist, and the reason that they're so valuable in this, and why seers are even valuable. So she is central, and she lost her daughter years ago and blames herself, and this whole entire thing is about trying to get her daughter back. And it came to me, this whole, as a mom, I don't know if you guys are moms too, but you have these sort of paranoid thoughts about losing your kids, and then being an author, you think, well, what would you do, right? Like you do all these what ifing, like, you know, and you think about these horrible things that could happen because you do them to your characters. But what if you were to lose, I have a daughter, what would happen if I would lose my daughter? Like, what would I be willing to do to get her back? And that's actually like the thing that set this whole thing afire, even more than the 80s aerobics instructor coming back. And so Ravine has gone down a very twisted path and has done many, 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 many things that I would never even contemplate doing. I don't think most people would, but at this point in the story, she is so close to her goal and has given up so much of her humanity, and just desperately wants her daughter back, Horizon, which is actually what the second book is named after, is Horizon Found. So you can guess, because what happens in the second book, but it's not really the end of the adventure. And I guess I need to check and see how much time, because once I get started talking, I can talk and talk and talk and talk without even trying. But so what I'm going to follow what everybody else has done, and I'm going to offer some free books. So if you are interested in the books in the Relic trilogy, I will give away, I'll give away 3 free ebooks. And if you guys have the first and want the second, that is totally fine. We can figure it out. But 3 free ebooks from that series. And I also do have, as I look, author copies, I am also willing to send for free, and I can autograph them too as well, the trilogy complete in paperback, the author copy, as well as a little bit of swag. if you're interested, just comment on there about the Relic trilogy, and that would be outstanding. Terry, do I have more time to keep talking, or are we at the end of the hour?
You technically have 2 minutes. I haven't gone yet. We are going to run late because we got started late, but you do still have 2 minutes.
Well, I can stop if we want to try and keep this into a reasonable level and let you start. I'm totally cool with that, since, you know, this has
Up
been
to
kind of a
you.
crazy day. Why don't you go, Terry? Thank you guys so much. It was great talking to you guys.
All right. Well, thank you, Claudia. It's so interesting. I love that so many of us sort of have similar themes in our work that we write. All right. Well, hello, everyone. I am Terry Bruce, for those of you who missed the intro at the beginning of this. So I am one of the co-founders of Strong Women, Strange Worlds. And I write science fiction, fantasy, and I say a smattering of horror. But if you read the reviews of some of my books, especially my short story collection, my readers say that I write a lot of horror. And I'm like, oh, they're just kind of cute, interesting stories. I didn't think they were horror. I write in the genres that would technically be qualified as slipstream or new weird / contemporary fantasy. That is kind of Shirley Jackson. A lot of reviews have compared a lot of my short stories to Shirley Jackson. Tim Powers, China Miéville. So if you like authors kind of that are at the literary speculative fiction end of the spectrum, quieter stories that kind of sneak up on you. I don't write a lot of like action sequences. I don't write epic fantasy. I don't write like gritty urban fantasy. Then you'll like my work. If you like those particular genres, you probably will hate my work. All of my work generally features 2 defining characteristics. I'm going to give you an example of what I mean when I say like slipstream, new weird kind of stuff. So this is my short story collection, Souls. I love this cover more than I can say. This artwork here is just gorgeous. I just love it. But this gives you my vibe right there. Monsters and like, what is going on? Are they like fighting? Are they kissing? What is happening? And so this short story collection, Souls, came out 2 years ago, actually. It came out in 2020 during the pandemic, came out in the late summer, which means this poor baby did not get a proper book launch, didn't get proper announcements, because we were all just trying to like not die during the summer of 2020. So this poor little thing, I didn't get to throw a party for it. I'm super sad. But in here, there are 2 stories. One is called The Lady and the Unicorn. Now, one of the defining characteristics of most of my work is ambiguous or open-ended endings. I love them. If you've ever read Frank Stockton's The Lady or the Tiger, that is one of my favorite short stories in the whole wide world. I believe it's in the public domain these days, so you can Google it and read it. I love it. But I love stories that you get to the end and the author basically just kind of leaves it up to the reader to interpret how they think it ends or what happened next. So I have a story, all my stories kind of feature that. And if you don't like ambiguous endings, if you like stories where the good guys and the bad guys fight and the good guys triumph and order is restored and we all throw a party and go for a beer and the world is all better again, you are not going to like my work. And then the other defining characteristic of my books and stories tends to be that it's set in sort of the real world or a world that's very much like ours. But there's something just a little fantastical or weird going on. And to give you 2 examples from the short story collection, which, by the way, this is available wherever books are sold in ebook and paperback. I do not have any special offers related to this book today, but if you feel sad for it that it didn't get a proper launch and tried to launch during COVID, you could go buy a copy to make it feel better that people love it and want it to have a happy life. But this features a story called The Lady and the Unicorn, which, as I said, is modeled on Frank Stockton's The Lady or the Tiger. And it's set in New Hampshire. And in New Hampshire, where I grew up and spent many years of my adult life, we have a lot of I wouldn't call them biker gangs, like they're not like Hell's Angels, but we have large groups of usually big burly men riding motorcycles around the countryside. And in The Lady and the Unicorn, it explains that, you know, when you look at these motorcycle dudes, they look like motorcycle dudes, big burly beefy guys with beards and a lot of leather. But if you look at them just right, or if the light hits them just right, you see that they are in fact actually unicorns. They're horses with horns on their heads. A second story to give you a second example when I talk about what slipstream and new weird means and kind of the vibe of my stories, is my probably second favorite story that I've ever written, a story called Welcome to Oasis, which is set in our world, but there are two alternate realities that are collapsing. So it's sort of multiverse, but they are collapsing in to occupy the same time space. And the story is about the government has created a website to help you navigate the end times and the fact that you probably will cease to exist very shortly. So if you like sort of that dry, sly sarcasm, and also ambiguous endings, and also stuff just gets weird and everybody just sort of deals with it, that's me as an author in a nutshell. So I do have the short story collection, Everywhere Books Are Sold, paperback and ebook. You can get that at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, your local indie bookstore, IndieBound, Book Depository is available worldwide. Amazon, your local bookstore can order it. And it is available to libraries through ebook, Overdrive, through your library system, or your library can order a copy if they don't have it in stock. And this is a good place to start too. If you're like, she sounds sort of interesting, I might want to check out her work, then short story collection is always a good place to start getting to know an author and their vibe. However, I also have my contemporary fantasy series, and this is my baby. This is my passion project, and I love this series. And there are currently 3 books, Hereafter, Thereafter, and Whereafter. These are available in ebook and paperback wherever books are sold. This is going to be a 6-book series. The 4th book is forthcoming shortly, and I'll get to that in a second. But basically, this series is about a 36-year-old woman named Irene who dies and gets stuck on Earth as a ghost. And Irene, she's kind of an unlikable character at the beginning. I'm hoping, if I have done my job as an author, she grows as a person, but she's a little bit of a brat at the beginning of the series. And she decides she just doesn't want to be dead. She's not having it. So she sets out on an odyssey to figure out if there's a loophole or some kind of magical being in the universe that can make her not be dead. Along the way, she meets a 14-year-old boy named Jonah. Jonah, trigger warning for sure, is depressed and has suicide ideation. And he's alive, but he can see dead people and he likes hanging out with the dead because he's depressed and thinking about killing himself. And he runs into Irene. Irene has got all the stubbornness and all the will to live. And Jonah has all the empathy and kindness and patience. And they make a really good team. They sort of complement each other. So they team up and go on this odyssey together. It is not a romance, by the way. He's 14, she's 36, people. So this is a friendship story. It's definitely not a romance. So these are available, as I said, in ebook and paperback everywhere books are sold. The first book is also available in audiobook, but I will be very honest with you. If you are an audiobook person, I don't have any plans, and it's not in the pipeline currently, to do the audiobooks for the other books. My plan is to go back at some point and do that, but it's Nowheresville. So if you do not want to start a series that you can't finish, I would not recommend, if you're an audiobook person, doing that, because I will be honest, I can't promise when that will happen. But if you're a paperback and ebook person, they're available wherever books are sold. And for some insane reason that I have no control over, Amazon has discounted the first book in the series to $5. You can literally get the paperback copy for $5 off of Amazon. So you can run right over there right now and buy that if you want to. The ebook is like $2.99, it's like $3. And I'll tell you what, if you sign up for my mailing list, so if you go to my website, terrybruce.net, or you can just Google my name, and sign up for my mailing list and say that you in the How Did You Hear About Me, say the SWASWA Book Fair, I will send you the ebook for free, even save you the $3 if you would like to give this series a try. Now, the fourth book is coming out starting sometime between next week and September 1st. I keep saying 2 weeks, but I get impatient. I'll probably start releasing it this weekend, like after I get off this call. That is initially going to be released as serialized fiction, which means you're going to have to subscribe through Patreon, and you will get weekly or monthly releases depending on which subscription level you sign up for. Once the subscription has run through, all the chapters have been released to the subscribers, I will release that in ebook and paperback as well. And then the last two books in the series will be coming very quickly after that. So this series will be wrapping up within the next couple of years, and you'll be able to get your hands on all the books. These also are available from your local bookstore can order this. All online retailers, IndieBound, Books A Million, the whole 9 yards. Ebooks through Overdrive, your local library system, as well as purchase an ebook. Now, special offers for you today. So hereafter, you can go to my website and read my blog post about the terrible, traumatic things that this has happened to this book. So originally, this series was with a publisher. This is the second edition of these books with different covers. So originally the books were with a publisher and the first book came out. This is the first edition of Hereafter. So that's the first edition. This is the second edition. You can see that the publisher was kind of going for like an urban fantasy paranormal vibe with the cover art. This is the unreleased first edition cover of Thereafter, which actually never saw the light of day. The book was pulled from production and released about 3 days before release. So this is the first edition cover. This is my cover. This is the second one. You can see they were leaning into like the romance. That's why I always go, this is not a romance, but this is how the publisher was going to market this series. So my special offer for the Afterlife series is this. I have about 5 of these first editions left. So if you're kind of a big book hound who loves collecting like first editions, especially like rare and can't get your hands on them anymore, or you're a super fan of mine, comment on this video and say that you would like this. I will sell these for first edition $25, and that includes shipping. And this will be a signed first edition copy. And I will include a special swag pack that includes the limited edition artwork for the second book in the series as well with that. This offer for the $25 shipping is for Canada and US only. So if you're in Canada or the US and you want this first edition of Hereafter signed, I will sell that for $25. Additionally, if you're a super fan and you're super wild and crazy or love super collector's editions, I can do a super collector's edition for $50, which includes shipping, in which you will get a hand annotated copy of the first edition. So for every chapter in this book, I will handwrite at least one comment in that chapter, possibly more, because I'm very talkative, if you haven't noticed. That will give some insider info, like if there was a cut scene or the scene went down a different way in the draft before publication, I will notate that. I will call out like little jokes that are probably not apparent to anyone but me that I included in here, a little insider jokes. Like for me, I included some jokes for my friends and my sister. So I will notate all those things. So you will get a special, unique, one-of-a-kind collector's edition, hand annotated and signed by the author. That is $50. And again, I only got 5 copies of these. So basically the first 5 people who either just want the signed edition for $25 or the annotated collector's edition for $50 gets them. And then they are all gone forever. Now, after hearing all that, if you're still undecided, if you're like, she seems sort of interesting, but I want to check out her work a little more, I have one other special offer for you today. So around the holidays, I print out one of my short stories and bind it up in a limited edition run. I usually do about 100 of these to 120 of these little paper chapbooks. They have a cardstock cover, so they're a little bit durable. They are numbered and signed this one's not signed, but they will be signed before they're sent out. But usually I sign them and will personalize those. And I send those out to my holiday card list. And I usually have a few copies left over that I then distribute throughout the year. So I have my 2018 chapbook. I've got 2 copies left. That's The Lady and the Unicorn. My 2019 chapbook, I have The Ghosts of Acadia. I have 6 copies of this one left. Dreaming Out of Time, I have 2 copies. And this one actually is not cardstock. This has a paper cover because I had there was problems getting paper, COVID. And then I Happiness was this past December's chapbook. I have a lot of these left. If you go to my website right now, terrybruce.net, and sign up for my mailing list, so you'll see a big yellow button that's with a email icon on the left-hand side of the screen. If you sign up for my mailing list and in the How You Heard About Me, say SWA book fair, I will mail you one of these chapbooks for free. So if you're like, hey, I'd like to see what you read, but I'm not ready to invest money in you and make this a thing yet, I will give you one of my short stories in print form as a sampler. So you just have to sign up for my mailing list. If you have a particular preference of which of these stories you get, you can indicate that as well in the comments below this video. But again, I Happiness is the newest one that is not released anywhere. You can't get that story anywhere else yet except here. Dreaming Out of Time, which that's the 2021, and I don't think that is. Yeah, you can't get that story anywhere else either. It's not in the short story collection. So this is the 2020 Dreaming Out of Time. Ghosts of Acadia 2019, 6 copies and 2 copies of Lady and the Unicorn. These are both in Souls, the short story collection. But if you want a hand-signed limited edition chapbook version of either of those, you can specify those. And again, Lady of the Unicorn, we've only got 2 left, and then they are all gone forever. All right, well, that is it. I am out of time. So thank you, everybody who came to our live online book fair. We would love to have your feedback about what worked, what didn't. This was a beta test, so there was a little rockiness with some of the technology that we'll continue to work on improving. Would love to hear suggestions for improvements, what you thought about the length of time per author and for the whole event, if we did longer segments for the individual authors or a longer, like half day or full day vendor fair. Love to hear your thoughts. Hopefully we will be back again next month with another version of the vendor fair with some tweaks and some different authors, so do stay tuned. If you are not already on the Strong Women Strange Worlds mailing list, I do recommend that you go to strongwomenstrangeworlds.weebly, WEEBLY.com, and you can sign up for our mailing list there, or follow our Facebook page, or follow us on Twitter to be notified for when we have events like this. All right, I'm going to stick around for a few minutes, answer questions. If anybody has questions, we'll be on the SWA Facebook page and can answer any questions any of the audience might have. Otherwise, our next upcoming live event is our quick read, which will be on Thursday, September, I believe that's the 15th, from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. You can find all the details at strongwomen.strangeworlds.weebly.com and the schedule of all of our live upcoming events. All right, everyone. Thank you for those who joined us and stayed with us today. We really appreciate it. Appreciate you spending your Saturday midday with us. Bye, everyone.